All right, I think we will get started. Good morning. I am Andrea Spencer. I'm Vice President of Communications at ElderSource, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the fifth in the series of Age Your Way, Being Your Best in Mind, Body, and Spirit. Welcome. May I have the first slide, please? I want to go over a few housekeeping items for those of you who have not joined us in the past sessions. To let you know, the session is being recorded and we will be posting it on the ElderSource website. If you are not able to attend, and of course you can share it with your friends and family. We're using the Zoom webinar format where the members of our audience are muted and the camera's not on, but we have a special feature today where you will be able to jump into the chat and provide some feedback, guided by one of our speakers today. But we are leaving all the questions to the end during the Q&A session. So if you have something, make a note and jot it down, and we would be looking at those questions toward the end of today's webinar. All the resources that are mentioned today will be shared in a follow-up email along with being available on the ElderSource website. So we may have some technical difficulties. So due to the number of attendees, just be patient as we fix any issues. Next slide. I would like to introduce our workshop facilitators today, Linda Levin, CEO with ElderSource, and Cheryl Whalen, Director of Special Initiatives with SAGE. They've been great leaders for this series. So I'm going to welcome them, and they'll tell you a little bit more about the series that we've been hosting over the last several months. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Andrea. As Andrea said, I'm Linda Levin. I am CEO of ElderSource. And ElderSource is designated by the state of Florida to be the Area Agency on Aging and Aging and Disability Resource Center for 7 counties in Northeast Florida. We're part of a statewide network of 11 area agencies on aging and disability resource centers, and also part of a national network of over 620 such agencies. And as such, we are charged with identifying the needs of older adults and caregivers, and developing plans on how we're going to address those needs, and using federal and state resources to provide services to people who are aging and to their caregivers to help them live and age with independence and dignity for as long as possible in their own home and community. Part of our charge in doing all this work is to identify those in greatest economic and social need. And for years now, ElderSource has been a leader in addressing the needs and looking at the needs of LGBTQ older adults. We've done a variety of things, such as developing an LGBTQ cultural competency training and targeted outreach to LGBTQ older adults to make sure they're aware of our resources. This is another opportunity for ElderSource to reach this population of older adults and caregivers, but to reach you specifically and to provide you through funding from the LGBTQ Community Fund at the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida, to provide this series of webinars that Cheryl will tell you more about are based on the needs specifically important to those individuals who are LGBTQ and aging. We hope that these webinars are helpful to you and that you will share them with your friends and colleagues. And with that, I will turn it over to Cheryl, and she can tell you about SAGE and tell you a little bit more about our webinar series.
Thank you so much, Linda and Andrea. It's an honor to be here with you today for our 5th and final workshop as a part of this series. We have had 5 workshops, and they've been designed to really offer valuable information and resources to help prepare for the best way to age well as LGBTQ+ community members. Our topics have included areas such as legal decisions and preparation, being a caregiver, and how we want to be cared for as LGBTQ+ older adults, financial preparation, and then leading up to today, overall health and well-being within the LGBTQ+ community. Our goal is really for you to use the information from the subject matter experts and SAGE and ElderSource websites to line up what you need and to help make the best decisions possible as LGBTQ plus older people. I now want to share just a brief overview of SAGE. SAGE is the nation's oldest and largest organization dedicated to LGBTQ plus aging. We have services in New York City. We have new services that have started in Miami, Florida, which I'm sure Bill Gross, one of our speakers today, will tell you a little bit more about. And we also offer a number of national programs, such as our National Resource Center on LGBTQ plus aging, our National Housing Initiative, the SAGE Care Training and Credentialing Program, our Long-Term Care Equality Index, and a number of other programs and services that you can learn more about at our website, sageusa.org. And now I'll turn it back over to Linda.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, we're going to turn it right over to our speakers because we want to get as much information out to those who are viewing as possible. So first is Bill Gross. And Bill Gross is a social worker who has worked for over 8 years at SAGE, the nation's largest and oldest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBTQ plus older adults. As Director of Special Programs, he oversees services in New York City and in South Florida for people living with HIV, for veterans, and for LGBTQ plus older adults who are homebound or lack social connection. He has worked with LGBTQ plus nonprofits for almost 3 decades. Also joining us is Sonia Quijada. She is a wellness, yoga, and meditation consultant based here in Tampa, Florida. Sonia is the owner of Q Wellness, an online yoga studio, and as an Army veteran, former paratrooper who has experienced chronic pain, she has become adept at practicing and teaching therapeutic body movement to reduce chronic pain. Ever the optimist, Sonia believes that everyone can benefit from doing yoga, and yoga is for every shape, size, age, and ability. So let's get started. And Bill, welcome, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Linda. I am really excited to be here to speak a little bit about LGBTQ plus aging, wellness, self-care, resilience, all these things. I am a social worker, and much of my work when I'm leading support groups at SAGE, when I am doing individual counseling sessions, when I am overseeing programs, is about making sure that people are aware of what supports are already available in their lives and helping them to develop additional support systems and self-care mechanisms. So I'm excited to share some of that knowledge with you today and to get some of your knowledge that you already have on this subject. So I guess I'd like to start, we can go to the next slide, with 2 questions. Oh, and by the way, if you have a pen and paper near you, that will be helpful later on in this webinar. So go ahead and grab one if you can. If not, no big deal, we'll never know. Let's start with this first question though. I'm interested in knowing, and this you don't have to write down on the paper, I'm just interested in you thinking this through. What do you want to get out of today's workshop? This could be some practical knowledge. Maybe you came to this workshop to be in community with other folks who are interested in similar things. Maybe this is a way to structure your day, right? To have something to do for an hour and a half where you feel maybe some connection. All is good. And if you would, if you'd like, type something in the chat. Tell us why you're here today, and I'll read out some of the responses if that's okay. And facilitators of this can do this as well. Just any reason, anything for why you came today. The reason we're doing this, while folks are doing that, the reason we're doing this is to develop a sense of intentionality. I find that so often in my life, I'll speak from my own personal self, I can get overwhelmed by what's going on outside my door, right? That may be what I see when I watch the news, what I hear when I listen to my friends, what's going on with them, what's going on in my own body, what's going on in my own home. And these things, while very important, can leave me feeling like I'm kind of being dragged along by life instead of having an intentional focus of what I want to create in my life, right? So it's just a little bit of a shift where we're a bit more in the driver's seat. We all go through periods where we feel like life is happening to us, right? And I don't have a say in it, right? We want to find the moments in our life where we can have a say. So I'm gonna read just a couple of the things that are taking place in the chat. Someone says that they came today for tips on prioritizing time for themselves, and that's great. And that part of that is around boundary setting, which we are going to talk about, right? How to set boundaries to prioritize yourself. Putting self-care into practice. Yep, we talk about self-care a lot, right? What does it mean? And when do we actually do it? I know, for instance, if I do yoga every day, thank goodness that Sonia's leading it later on, I actually feel better. That doesn't mean I do yoga every day, right? How do I put it into practice? Great, thank you. Good. I'm coming for a sense of community and discovering new resources for LGBTQIA seniors. Good. And we are going to talk about resources. You're going to be sent some resources later. And yes, I hope that even in this strange webinar world, we can find some sense of community that we're in here together. Oh, what else? Getting out of autopilot mode and being more present. Wonderful. Learning new tricks and trades to share with my LGBTQ friends. Right. Good. It's kind of more about being out of autopilot, being more in the driver's seat of our lives. I am a live-in caregiver for my aging parents that lost my spouse of 30 years 4 months ago. I need help with self-care. And second part of this message, I live in rural Kansas. Good for you for showing up today, and for showing up in the stages of loss that you're in right now. I feel like opportunities such as this can be a real chance just to connect with others and to connect wherever you are in the country. And we're going to talk about some services, specifically through SAGE, that are available nationwide, including rural Kansas. So thank you all. How about just really quickly the second part of this question? Because I kind of actually like this part even more. How do I want to feel leaving today's workshop? Maybe that's just one word, or maybe it's a phrase. How do you want to feel? And I encourage you, if you don't feel like typing in the chat, that's fine. Say it out loud, though. Get it out of yourself, right? Let's do some intentional work here. How do you want to feel when you leave today? And to be clear, we're not always going to get what we want, right? We can put this out there. We can put what we want to learn and how we want to feel. And it's not always going to be the perfect match. So it's letting go of a kind of a sense of control, right? And moving more into a sense of creation. What do we want to create for ourselves? And if I want to leave here feeling relaxed, and I leave here feeling kind of stressed because there was a lot of knowledge coming at me, what can I do then to make myself feel relaxed if that's still important to me? So let me just read some of these here. Ooh, refreshed. Great. A little more empowered. Wonderful. Hopeful. Great. So I encourage you to keep checking in with yourself throughout this next hour plus, both my section and during Sonia's section maybe, to just check in. Take the temperature. Where are you with what you want to get out of today, both knowledge, experience, but also how you want to leave feeling, right? And maybe these change over time. Maybe halfway through you're like, I don't really want to feel refreshed leaving here anymore. I want to feel energized, right? And that's a different word for me. So just keep track. So what my intentions are today from this next 24 minutes of my section is I want to talk specifically for a moment about LGBTQ plus older adults and what makes our communities different. And then I want to move into self-care, talk a little bit about that. And I want to talk a bit about SAGE's services that might be able to help with this, including our national services. And we'll end with a short video and then move on to some experiential practice with Sonia. So, as the slide says, we are a growing population. Aren't these numbers amazing? 23 million older adults, LGBTQ older adults in the United States. 2030, 7 million, right? Aging of the baby boomers, people coming out later in life. We are a growing population. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about what makes us different. And one, this is a generalization. Two, there are many things that make us different, right? But I want to talk about these two because they factor into connectivity and self-care a little bit, right? The first one is the fact that many LGBT older adults do live alone and how that impacts how we get support from people. And the other is a quick look at discrimination. And for those of us, and especially older adults who have experienced lifetimes worth of discrimination, especially from mainstream institutions, how that impacts us. We talk a lot in social work these days about the term minority stress, how being a member of a social minority who have been systemically oppressed can impact how we're feeling and the increased need for self-care. Next slide. So these are three aspects to aging, whether we're single, whether or not we have children, and whether or not we live alone. And you can see the blue lines here are for the general older adult population. 40% live alone, 20% have no children, 40% are single, have no children, live alone, right? And then the orange line is for the LGBTQ plus older population, right? So our sources for support are different, right? If we live alone, if we don't have a spouse, if we have no children, right? And next slide, when we look at it from a caregiving model, this really comes into play, right? Because older adults generally, in the general population, often there's a younger person involved in care. Not always, but often there's a child, a grandchild, a nephew, a niece, right? Someone, even if they're not in your own state, they're kind of participating off there in the background, right? For better or for worse, right? Next slide. In our populations of older adults, we think of a horizontal model of care, right? Very often, the people who are offering us support are our peers, are people our own age. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing. And I think especially of the decades where HIV and AIDS was at its peak, how we as a community banded together and took care of our own. As we age, though, when our primary supports are aging with us and have maybe similar health problems, cognitive issues, things like that, we need to start trying to look for additional forms of support. Okay, next slide. This should be self-evident to us all, right? And all I'm going to say is when you have these mainstream institutions that in theory are there to protect and serve our most vulnerable populations, and when in actuality, someone has lived a lifetime of being, by some or all of these, oppressed, it's going to impact the way we seek care. And the concept of minority stress is especially at play here. And you can pop through each of these slides here when we look at each of these. So for housing, for instance, there's risk of eviction, religious issues with communities of faith. So we can advance these slides here to show all 6 of these. Thank you. Great, great. Now, this doesn't mean we're victims, right? We're not. We have gotten to this point in our lives. We have thrived in areas of our life. We have developed alternate resources to address the deficiencies where there's lack in services. So let's talk about that and let's harness it. Next slide. What lights you up? And this is a question that's just for you watching this. And if you have that sheet of paper, I'd encourage you to just start writing. And if you don't have a sheet of paper, that's okay. Start saying them out loud. What are the things you do? Who are the people in your life? What are the places in your life? Even if it's your bedroom, right? What are the foods in your life that light you up? Mine is the cherry vanilla scone that my coffee shop serves that I go to far more often than I should, right? What are the pets in your life? What are the activities in your life? Start writing them down, filling that sheet of paper. And if you only have 5 there, believe me, you have about 50 more that you have in your life. Don't have to do them every day. You just know that, oh yeah, 10 years ago, gosh, I went on that trip to West Virginia, and God, those mountains there were so beautiful. That lights me up just thinking about it, right? And if you'd like, you can put some of them in the chat. If you'd like to add a couple of them in the chat and I can say them out loud. If not, that's fine too. But the point is here that we want to cultivate this list, right? And I really would encourage you to look at what lights you up now in your life, but also to think back, gosh, 40 years ago, I loved riding my bicycle. And what would that be like? I know I used to ride my bicycle 30 miles a day. Probably not going to do that anymore. But what if I dusted off that bicycle and I rode around the block? Could I do that? Would that feel comfortable? Or if I can't ride a bicycle anymore, what would a slow walk around the block feel like, right? Add those into your list. Cultivate this list. When we do this list with our volunteers of one of our programs, I actually have them, we have a huge sheet of paper and we give them one of those like jumbo box of Crayola crayons, you know, with a sharpener included, enormous boxes, and they are on the ground like channeling their inner 3-year-olds, drawing what lights me up in my life. And it can be stick figures, it can be abstract, whatever. But I encourage you to start cultivating this list in your life. Let's go to the next slide. Types of self-care. So this is just to kind of jog your memory, right? These are different types of care that we can access. Practical self-care. Maybe that's going to an agency like Sage or another agency in your community and seeing what it would be like to ask about food, home food delivery. Wouldn't that be nice if you qualify? Not to, I mean, that I'd take it. Not to have to make food every single day. Oh my gosh, right? Physical, how we're treating our body. What are we putting inside our body? What's sex and intimacy like for us these days? How do we use that as a self-care mechanism, right? Spiritual self-care. That can be a house of worship. That could be your own connection to spirit or something larger. That could be just taking a walk in nature. Maybe that's your spiritual self-care, right? Social, obviously, we are social beings. And I can tell you, I am a 100% introvert. I can do things like this, but don't put me in a crowded room, please, right? And still, even for those of us who are introverts, we thrive on some connection. For us introverts, it's more kind of on our own terms, right? But some connection. Emotional support, is that through a doctor, a therapist, a spiritual leader, a friend who offers emotional support, right? And technological support. We can talk about this a little later, maybe if we have a moment, but there are apps that you can download on your cell phone that actually can help with this. There are great meditation apps, for instance, meditation and breathing apps that don't require much. You just download it, it's free, and you can meditate, and you can set the timer for 1 minute, You could set it for 30 minutes. You can use it to help you get yourself at sleep at night, right? Self-care. Next slide. We can't talk about self-care without talking about boundaries, right? So number one is practice saying no. And I guarantee this is going to be an issue for many of us in this virtual room, right? Especially with people we love. We're a little better with saying no with people we don't like, right? But even that can be challenging. But with someone we love, that's really hard. And we've been conditioned to think, and I think especially, again, forgive me if I'm generalizing, especially for LGBTQ populations, which have such higher rates of caregiving, meaning we ourselves are the caregiver to people in our lives, to family members, right? That's great. That's beautiful. When can we say no within that, right? Even if it's, gosh, I really want to help you organize that closet. I'm not feeling great today. Let's find another day that works for me, that I would feel better. Okay. Identify your triggers. This could be people that trigger you. This could be, I'm a news junkie, and I know I can go down that rabbit hole, right? And it's one thing to turn on the news for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's another to keep it on for 3 hours as I'm doing my stuff, right? I don't need that trigger of how that makes me feel at the end of having news on behind me the whole time, right? Cultivate support, and that can be support of a professional, of a community organization, of an old friend or family member, or of the next door neighbor. And you don't really talk about anything too deep. You just kind of say hi every now and then. Don't discount those moments. If it's someone who you enjoy, who you can kind of reach across the metaphorical fence, right, and shake their hand and say, hey, it's good to see you today. Great weather, right? Right? Those superficial interactions can come into play here. And lastly, treat yourself, right? Treat yourself when it comes to self-care. And sure, this can mean that week-long cruise, good for you. If you can afford that week-long cruise, go for it, right? This doesn't mean that it's the big spa package at your local wellness center, right? If it is, okay, good. What we found in research, though, is that what works best with treating ourselves is not the size of the treat, but the quality and the intentionality behind it. So if I know, I'm living in New York right now and it's autumn, and I know that if I go outside right now and if I take 3 deep breaths, I will smell that autumn air in New York City, the trees, right? And I know how that's going to make me feel. And if I can intentionally go out of my apartment and take 4 minutes to take those 3 breaths, that's going to change my whole body, right? That's probably going to change my whole mindset. Next slide. This is just a list, and I didn't make up this list. Thank you, Internet. This is just some additional self-care mechanisms. We're going to send you this list afterwards, just in case you want to take something from it. Some of these may resonate, others may not, right? And that's okay. Decluttering, taking a walk, wearing clothes that make you feel good. Yeah, I don't think about that enough. Well, maybe I do. I wear clothes that make me feel comfortable, so I guess that is right. Yeah. Spending quality time with a friend, moving your body to your ability. Okay, let's move to the next slide. I want to talk about SAGE just a little bit, right? Cheryl described SAGE's mission. We serve LGBTQ+ older adults, improving their quality of life. Primarily, our services are for people age 60 and up. We have some exceptions for younger populations of people living with HIV and trans folks and veterans, SAGE, right? Let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about 3 quick programs which might be of service. I'm including this first one because I know probably a bunch of our watchers are in Florida. Maybe not. But this is a program that we have in Fort Lauderdale. If you're close to that, or if you know people who are close to Fort Lauderdale, we have a friendly visitor program. And the friendly visitor program matches volunteers of any age, but a lot of them are younger, volunteers with older adult, LGBTQ adult clients for just ongoing weekly support. So the volunteer visits the person, and usually, you might sit and talk, you might watch a movie, you might have some tea, you might go for a walk, to your ability and what you want to do, right? We'll have the contact numbers later of how, if you're interested in these programs, how you can get in contact. Additionally, and I'm going to bring this up because Cheryl brought our Miami program up, and I didn't include it only because it doesn't include the kind of social support that I'm talking about here. Our Miami program, though, offers case management support for LGBTQ plus older adults, right? Help with benefits, help with connecting to services, help with connecting to a doctor or a therapist, right? And additionally, it has emergency fund support. So for lower income folks who really need help paying that one utilities bill, paying that back rent. This is for people in the Miami-Dade area. And again, my email is going to be the end of the slide set in what we send you, and you're welcome to reach out and I can get you in touch with the correct person. Next slide. Our Sage Connect program is a national phone buddy program, right? So this is for people across the entire country. There are still 2 states, and we're going to get to in a second, 2 states where we don't have any participants yet, and so we definitely want to find at least one participant in those states so we can say we serve all 50 states, right? But you can sign up for this as a participant, and in some ways it's like the Friendly Visitor program, right? In that you're matched with a volunteer, but instead of visiting, it's a phone buddy support, so that person calls you each week. And this can be transformative. Both of these programs, they can be transformative because it's that one person in your life for whom this is the deal. This is the arrangement. They are there to act as a support for you, right? And they're not a therapist, and they're not, they're not a professional role, but they're there as a social support. And for some of us, it can take away the hard part. It's sometimes hard to ask for support, right? But if you sign up for a program where that's the whole point of the program, for some people that makes it a little easier, right? Next slide. So here we have the 48 states. Oh, okay, so this is an older slide. I'm sorry. We have filled most of these states. Where we're still missing, if you're in Idaho or Montana, we especially want you. And again, you may be matched with someone locally who could call you, but you may be in Oregon, and if the time differences work out okay, you might be matched with a volunteer who's in New York City and who can give you a call once a week and you can just check in. That can be fun. Okay, so before we move to the next slide, I just want to set it up. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let's move to the next slide. This is our hotline. This is our way for you to get support across the country, right? So for the participant of the webinar who's in Kansas, for instance, in rural Kansas, this number is really important. This is SAGE's National LGBTQ+ Elder Hotline. It's a 24/7 hotline where you can call in. It's staffed by peer counselors, so part of their role is they can offer a little bit of support, right? But it's also meant to be a resource for references and references near you. So for instance, you can say, I'm calling from this city in Missouri, and I'm looking for a friendly visitor program around my town. I'm not around Fort Lauderdale or New York City where SAGE has its friendly visitor programs, but maybe there's a friendly visitor program around you. Many Department for the Agings in larger cities have these kinds of programs, and in smaller cities they have maybe some alternatives. It might not be LGBTQ focused, but very often there are elder friendly visitor programs that you can use, right? So this number is important, 24/7, as I said. So before we go to the next slide, I'm going to end with this, that a lot of SAGE's programming is increasingly taking a cross-generational focus, which I think is so great, in that it serves LGBTQ+ older adults, but that it has a wide range of people who are involved in it, including volunteers, like our Friendly Visitor program, like our SAGE Connect program, right? And so the reason I'm showing this next short 5-minute video before we move on to Sonia is that it illustrates some of those connections that are there for us, that hopefully we can make. And we become a little siloed, I think, sometimes in our communities, where the older community doesn't necessarily interact with the younger. How wonderful would it be if we had more options around this? So you can go to the next slide and show this video, and we'll be back in a second. So click it one more time and it'll start to play, I think. There you go. Enjoy. Oops, I think we might have started, yeah, there we go. Let's try it.
I think one of the biggest things is a lack of trust of the older generation to the younger.
That gap took away the part where we can actually come together and talk about the issues of our community.
Sorry, guys, 1 second.
I think one of the biggest things is a lack of trust of the older generation to the younger.
That gap took away the part where we can actually come together and talk about the issues of our community.
Hey,
Hello. I'm Leah.
I'm Richard.
Frankie.
Hello, Barbara.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. How are you?
What pronouns do you use? Pronouns?
I don't know.
She, her, they, them.
I don't know what you mean. It's your generation.
Yeah, I understand.
I know. I have a lot to learn about that.
Yeah, I can help with that.
My name is Charles Valentino. My age, I'm 67.
Wow, you look good.
I'm 28 years old. I'm an artist, and I identify as a trans woman. It's very nice to meet you, Fatima.
I use they, them, he, him pronouns. I'm trans mask. So, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We have the history, and I think it's important for us to pass it on, to share that.
We seem to believe that there's nothing we can tell you because you're not going to listen.
You were coming up in a time to be homosexual was illegal.
Yeah.
My first gay club experience was just 2012, okay?
Oh, good.
It was just 7 years ago.
You're a newbie.
When I was a kid, there was really no positive word for being queer or gay. So to come to this point, to accept myself and hold myself up in regard is a really extraordinary thing.
Pride is not just 1 month. It's how you carry yourself and how you live your life all the time. I would say that pride for me starts in the mirror, liking what I see there first.
It's a way to celebrate, but we also can't forget that the reason we have the Pride Parade is because of what happened at Stonewall 50 years ago.
Stonewall means a great deal to me. It occurred only 3 months after I came out.
I think I'm still learning about Stonewall and trying to reconnect with the history that folks like me went through and lived through.
Up until that point, gay bars were always raided. People were put into paddy wagons and taken away.
I was there that night that it all went down. We've had enough.
This is it.
This is it. Enough.
I have this incredibly vivid image of a policeman standing with his stick in the air. They were beating people. It was really awful.
I think of names, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Miss Major.
You saw things that I didn't see. in the 60s with the riots, and then there's the AIDS crisis.
Yes.
Within our own community, there's a lot of stuff that we still have to unify on.
It's wild how much attention we could give to rainbow flags, but not to, I think, dead Black bodies, specifically Black trans girls.
I'm going to be the same person regardless of if I'm a man or a woman. I think personality and like how somebody is, like if they have a good heart, like that's all that really matters, not how they identify.
I know people in my generation are grappling with that and trying to understand that, knowing how we were prejudiced against, that I certainly don't want you and your generation to be prejudiced against because of us.
Oh, I think you're wonderful. I think you're doing really well. It's nice to see young people that are really advanced in their thinking. You know?
We lost the grandparent experience. The aunts speaking to their nieces and nephews, the uncles. We've lost that, and especially within our communities.
I feel like having moments like these where we can talk is the right step to make, just kind of bringing it all back together. This is step one.
Definitely step one.
Like, we should go to Stonewall.
I know, yeah, let's go to Stonewall for drinks.
I'm down.
Okay.
So, with that, I cannot watch that without tearing up. I am so excited to turn this over to Sonia, who is going to lead us in a more physical, experiential practice. And we'll be back after Sonia is done, and we can answer some questions if you all have them. So we'll see you back soon.
Thank you, Bill. I know we're soulmates. I'm the same. I was tearing up every time I see that. It just is so emotional for me. It reminds me, my son is at the film school at NYU, and he took me to see the showing of Swan Song last spring, I think, last fall, last summer. And that's in this generational and cultural history that is within the. It was just, if you haven't seen the movie, you need to look it up, rent it if you have to. It's powerful. Swan Song as a statement, and because it's rural, right, small town Ohio, and in fact, one of our participants today in Kansas, my first yoga studio, I opened there in Leavenworth, Kansas. It's a little rural, it's a small town, and the yoga studio is inspiration today. One of my yoga teachers purchased it from me as I was assigned to Fort Bragg, and that's what led me to my offerings, my services online, because either I was moving or in the military, or the people were moving, reassigned, were deploying, and so we began doing work together. And so, my sound better. Can you hear me better now? Linda, I'll keep going, see if it works. So we're going to take it has been shared. Now let's move this into our corporal experience. Let's inhabit the intention you set, desires that you wrote down or vocalized, and identify time here together today. So make your way into what I call an impeccable seat. Shift a little, and I'm at the chat because my sound is not going well. If I need to take off microphone, and we'll go straight with just my the computer microphone. But use your hands, shift to one side, and touch your flesh, touch your hip, and just kind of shift and slide flesh away from your pelvis, and then to the other side, and let your body pick up its fullness. right? The line, the quote from that short that we just watched is pride. Pride, a day or a parade or a month. Pride is how we carry ourselves. So take up your full, give your body the allowance all so that it can receive and flow. That's where healing. That's where stress and struggle are released. We allow the movement when we allow the breath. Being here, that rest your hands as you like on your lap, stacked or folded. You and then lift your heart, lift your sternum, lift your breastbone, lift your lungs, and wiggle your shoulders. Just notice, just kind of wiggle. Do a little shimmy or a shrug. You choose. And then say it out. Big breath, full in. Nose, open the mouth, just slack the jaw a little, open the mouth and sigh it out. More. Wiggle first, slack, then lift the heart, inhale, and then sigh it out. Your eyes or drop your gaze to the floor or to your lap. Let's do it. Breathe as you soften. We tend to carry the yoke here. It's a big burden. I would, as Bill said, we get overwhelmed going on outside our doors, outside our walls, and we carry it here. And what's interesting is each one is really like a dry leaf that if you were to pick one up or hold it, it doesn't weigh anything. You feel like it doesn't weigh anything, or a feather. Like, why is this a struggle? Well, when you have ever up a full bag of dry leaves that have been raked, back, pressed, or a big feather down mattress or ticking that has been stuffed and compressed, and you heat and pick it up, they're heavy. That happens. Our thoughts, our struggles, our beliefs, our emotions, our traumas, our sense of obligation, our dread, all of that, and it weighs right here. It just hangs on it. Sometimes it's almost like a long, wet coat, cotton in a wool coat. Right? That sense of drudgery. So we're going to move into the third breath. Breathing, wiggle, open. Lift here as if you have strings pulling up your lungs. Just lift gently. It's not a right? Inhale, nose. Then open the mouth and exhale. Take fingertips now and do some light tap from this. You can feel it where it almost, you can feel the vibration. If you were to vocalize, you could hear the sound in your voice. You create that vibration. Our fascia, myofascia, is our connective tissue, and it's powerful and it's amazing. It is the true infrastructure of our bodies, of our corporal bodies. This body we inhabit, this vessel of our soul. The big construct actually is myofascia. It covers every bone, every fiber, every organ, and it gets and it holds our yang, and it gets adhesions and dry. It doesn't allow movement. It doesn't allow expression. It doesn't allow flowing or healing or recovery. It doesn't allow aging with longevity. So let's tap in here. Open it up, and then come out to the sides. Depending on and construct today, it might feel easier to go across the far side. So do that. Join me, or sometimes I can go over. Just depends on how my joints and bones. Okay. All right, now settle in. Let's move the entire torso. I'm going to move my chair back so that you can see me a little. The entire torso. Turn that aside so you can see. Shift to the front edge of your chair because I want space with you. So the back of the edge of the chair, and then lean forward and take a look at your feet. Move your feet forward, ankles below your knees. We spend a lot of time tucked up and under, and that isn't what we want when we're moving. When we're inviting the fullness of possibility, the fullness of unity. So here, lift your ribs up, lift your ribs forward. Bring your hands to your hips. Squeeze your elbows back. Squeeze. Breathe. Maybe lean a little more. Maybe face forward. This is heart opening. So posture correction from all of the slumping that we just naturally do. Walking, driving, reaching forward for computer, texting, for phones, for devices, for wooden spoons, steering wheels, all the reasons to reach forward. We need to open up, reach back behind. Breathe here. Push into your feet, push down to rise up. Lightly, push forward, use your hands, push into your hip, lift your lean back, lean those elbows back. Maybe you touch the back of the mat. Hold the apple under your chin. So instead of keeping your chin up and that crunches the cervical spine and isn't really so good for our vertebra, apple, chin, and lean back. Breathe and breathe. Come forward now. Slide hands down the thighs. Reach for the knees. Grab, hold on to the knees, and then bring chin to chest and pretend you're falling back. But because you're grabbing your legs, pull your arms to stretch behind the shoulder, between the shoulder blades. Breathe here. Draw your neck back into your spine. Breathe. Let's do another full round. Inhale, lift. Shift the ribs forward, slide the hands back. This time, C hands. Have thumbs to the back and finger to the side. Perhaps pull gently, drag the shoe of the belly around to the sides and push the thumbs back into your behind you. Push into the low back, ribs as you lean forward, as you breathe, and squeeze the elbows behind. Press your feet into the floor. Breathe deeply. Shift to one side. Turn and look down at the floor. Breathe and feel. Come back to center. Notice what goes snap, climp, pop, and thunk and clunk. Shift to the other side. Turn carefully, slowly, purposefully. Look down at the floor. Breathe. Shift to the center. Prepare. Exhale, squeeze those elbows, push down into the floor, push your feet into the floor, and slowly tip back. Stay configured, but leaning back. Open your heart. Allow. Breathe in. Reveal. Trust. Vulnerable. Be courageous. Strong, and then slide your hands down your thighs. Grab your knees. Roll back slightly to chest and fall back or lean just enough that you feel your arms pulling and lengthening the stretch between the shoulder blades. Navel back into your spine. Oh, so good. All inside, turn and look down at the floor. Pause, breathe, portion. Feel all the stuck stuff that complains, kind of like weeding. You can hear the roots tearing through the ground, the soil. Come back to center. Wiggle if you need to wiggle to reset. And then shift over. Turn and look down at the floor. Breathe. Pause. Come back to center. Inhale slowly. Transitions. As we get over 50, over 60 crowd transitions are where we go, oh, yeah. Lift the ribs. Forward. Time. Make arm. Right elbow. Scarecrow from my Kansas. Scarecrow arms. Bring on the screen, it looks like this is right arm. Keep that 90-degree. Spread your hands. Spread your hands wide. Pretend you're picking up a balloon. So can you feel the motion that you make when you pick up and then reach out, pick up another balloon? Notice the musculature of your hands and how it activates and engages. Feel it actually in elbows and shoulders. Very good. And for other issues and injuries and arthritis, when we have and use strong hand muscles. So bring that right arm across. And then the left hand comes back. This time, extend the fingers wide and put it down as if you're putting it in your back pocket. Push in and press down and sink. You'll down onto that right elbow or right shoulder. And then you can also push it away. Do it again. Sink. Feel what's happening here. The back body, the side body, the front body. Breathe. Push it away. Sink down and push it away. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, drop your navel at the front, like a low grunt, brace, abdominal bracing, like you're getting ready to push against the refrigerator or push a heavy door. Turn and look over. Breathe. This is a detoxing twist, and it helps open up our shoulders and get rid of that big, heavy yoke of life stuff that we collect. Come on out and push yourself up and wiggle a little. Check in, just notice what's happening. Notice what's talking, what's squeaking, what's complaining. Notice what is feeling empowered or fired. Notice what's feeling a little drudgery and complaining or feeling refreshed and excited. Let's do it. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, front. And then bring the left hand, grab your balloons, bring your elbow across the lap, and the right hand comes back onto that back pocket. Sink down, and then breathe. Sink down. Feel it. Maybe do some shoulder movement. Get in here. We got to open up that stuff to let it flow, to let it go. Push down. Breathe. One. Sink down. Wiggle it, and then push away. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, low front grunt, and then turn, look over. Breathe, press that right hand into that back pocket, push it. You'll feel the heel of the palm, sacrum, and perhaps your fingers over the glutes, the soft tissue of the backside. So good. Breathe here. Press your feet into it. And then untangle. Allow the flush. This is where we flush it out. Use muscular energy, muscular movement to help our body move at a cellular level, right? The only way that circulation happens, the endocrine system, the blood system, all our digestive system, all of this only works when we use the muscles of the body to shift and move it all around internally, which is why movement is some of the slide of treat yourself. Two of the recommendations were meditation and movement, right? Some body movement action that allowed to check things out. And that's what I am bringing to you today, sharing you. And I'm giving you, my usual classes are about an hour. So this is just a little bit of my style. Teach funky yoga for creaky body. Inhale, sweep your arms out wide, reach up, fingers, wiggle your fingers, tickle the ceiling, and then lean over, bring the right hand down to the chair because falling out is frowned upon in this establishment. Lean all the way over, settle both hips into the chair. Push into those right ribs, push those right ribs away, even as you lean over to the left. Breathe. Let the arm bend, let the hand hang or dangle, and push this right elbow up, like you're trying to poke it, and then probe failure. So push that elbow up, lean over, breathe, settle both hips, stay in the chair. Breathe. So good. Oh, all this junk and yuck that we store. The molecules of emotions are amazing, and we start off in our junk drawer, the junk drawer of the psoas and the pelvis and the QLs, the side body. You feel all that stuff shifting. Let's do the other side. Is it amazing how much cup of sweat just sitting in your chair? Inhale, sweep, reach up, tickle your fingers, tickle wide fingers, tickle the ceiling again. Reach, stretch yourself apart, press your feet into the floor, lift up, press feet as if you're trying to stand up, reach up, breathe. Okay, come on over to the right, bring the right hand to the chair for support, for safety. And then come on over, because this is an online program. We don't want thunking to be happening on your side of the camera. Come on, or screen. Come on over. Now, settle both hips on your chair seat and push into the left ribs over, even as you lean to the hand angle, push the elbow up, push that left elbow up, feel this. Oh, press your feet into the floor, breathe, big breath, clear out the junk, clear out the stuff, gotta let Up. Oh, wow. Okay, do some wobbly wiggliness. So do it over to one side of the chair, move around, check in, do a little modern dance jab, just see what you got. Over to one side, be in crook, because this is how we check in relationship we have, the fellowship of our body parts, all these players on our team. Come over to the other side and do the same thing, just whatever it is. Spontaneous dance, living room party, spontaneous living room dance party. That's what I'm trying to say. My brain, when I'm in the moment with, okay, be here, check in. How are you? Where are you? With the intentions that you set at the beginning of our program, as Bill guided you and offered, how are you feeling now? And how does that relate to what you wanted to feel, or what the expectation or invitation that you offered to this program? Let's do a little more. Let's do a little and see how that works to help flow things. Let's do some lower body work. So shift your knees wider, wiggle in your seat, allow your pelvis the opportunity to adjust when you move the femur bones in your hands on the knees. Inhale, lift the ribs, long spine, bring the ribs down and forward in between the knees. And I'm realizing you're not going to be, so let me move you farther away and I'll move farther back. Come down, come down, come down. Just come down in between the legs. Come down slowly. The arms are here. Wiggle those elbows. Move those elbows. Remind the shoulders that they can be loose, that we can let things go. And slowly start moving your torso from side to side, almost weaving from side to side, or floating, drifting. I like drifting. Let's do drifting. Bring your belly, your torso, some personal with one thigh. Pause and breathe. And then drift over to the other side. Get all up close and personal there. Pause and breathe. Let's visit each side again, going slowly. Breathe, moving with purpose. Stay here on one side on the screen. And now with the other hand, with the left hand, just push and wag the other leg. Like this is the free gate, right? The gate that just swinging open. So just push on it and let it swing. And move your hand up the inner thigh to allow your body, to allow your consciousness to feel the comfort, to feel the security, and the validation, the affirmation. Come around to the other side, drift. So come on over now, lean into that on the same side as me. If not, you're on your side. That's okay. And push against right leg, just sort of flapping the leg, the femur bone in the hip side, out there flapping, which is what I was often accused of by my command sergeant major and first sergeant, if they wondered if I knew what I was doing. Come back to center. Breathe here to prepare. Exhale, get strong in the arms and get strong in the belly, low front grunt, and then push the hands. Hands down, feel the engagement of her back. Push your arms down to lift your heavy torso upright. We're not engaging back and belly. We're using the arms to push up. Let's do another version of this. Inhale, long spine. Wiggle in it. Do a shimmy, 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 shimmy. Get crooked. See where it's spacious and soft. See where it's not, right? See where it's stuck and grumpy and clunky. And that's okay. That's how it is today. Just know that. And then slowly come. Waggle those elbows, pointy elbows, soft shoulders, as soft as they, knowing that when we carry our stuff, when we've got a lot of on, especially as caregivers, so that's why it's even more important to sort of flush it out every day. Like, well, it's like flushing the toilet or taking out the trash. We have to do it regularly. We just have to, because life continues to fill it up. Breathe to the floor. If you would like, reach your fingers to the and touch. Keep your hands on your knees. Breathe here. Let your head hang. Just let it. We're staying here. Purpose to let the low back extend, to let the body drape, pour out of the pelvis, to feel this release. If you have heart history, you want to stay up If you do not have heart history, or if your provider and cardiologist have allowed you to go upside down to lower your head, then you can go ahead and drift down a little more and feel the stretch or feel the extension of the lumbar. But it doesn't matter, even staying right in the middle, you'll still feel it. Even if you're supporting yourself with your hands on the floor, you can dangle your head and feel the opening of the release of the rucksack we carry every day. Breathe. Inhale to prepare, and exhale, bring your hands to your knees if they aren't already there. And exhale, engage the belly, strong, draw the navel back into your spine, and strong arms down on knees in to push the body upright. The flush, let your equilibrium come into where it needs to be. Stay. Sometimes we feel it in our eyes, we feel it in our blood pressure, in our ears, right? So we can see it in our skin. Allow that. This is how we get rid of our junk. This is how we move out the stuff of life day gives us. And that is all okay. With the legs wide again, wiggle in it. If okay, to widen a little more now that we've opened hips a little. These scarecrow arms, bring a left arm to the knee. This time, grab those balloons, back pocket, or I mean hand on the back pocket. Inhale, long spine, turn and look over. And this time, reach the arm up, long, reach it up overhead, reach, push that elbow into the knee, pushing up as long, pushing away, reaching, breathing, feel, oh, and back, and move up, do some wiggliness, because that's what our posture. We're all okay. We're doing this on purpose. Our neuroscience, our brain, our reptilian brain needs to know that we're safe. We're choosing to do this craziness. So right elbows again, right ankles. Grab those balloons, and then right elbow to the knee, left hand on the hip, on the back pocket. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, low front grunt. And turn, look over. Sweep that arm up. Reach up, lean, stretch. Elbow push away. Arm reaches away. Breathe. Hold that apple between your or under your chin. Hold that apple. Slide your throat back. Breathe. Stretch. Press your feet into the floor. Eyes open wide. So good. And then come center and wiggle in it. I'm going to move a little closer now to the screen. Now, in your chair. As we come to standing, or strength for strength and balance and endurance. But in this session, do some. So I wanted to make sure we had time, especially at the end. Bill had such good information to share. So sit back in your chair, but sit up. Remember those strings to remind us to lift our heart, right? We lift them up to each other. We honor ourselves. We honor each other. I see you and I love you. Be here, breathe. Rest your hands where comfortable, palms down or palms up, or stack your hands or hold, whatever you prefer. Drop your gaze to your lap, to the floor, or close your eyes if you're doing so. Breathe here. Now, notice, we're going to work from outside to inside. Notice what you can you hear what's happening in those walls on the other side of the door, outside in the world, in the community, in your household? What's happening? Hear it. Notice, even with eyes closed or with lids hooded, can you notice the lighting? Is it light or dark outside, external to you? And then as you come in a little closer to your body, what does the air feel like? Can you notice that? Notice the difference of touching and where the air is touching. And air warm or cool? Is it still or moving? Are there aromas, scents, odors? There are different noises inside the with you than there were, other than my voice on the screen. Different noises with you than there were outside when you were reaching to on the wall. Breathe, just notice. And then come inside yourself. And what's happening in your mouth? Roll your tongue around. Do you have leftover flavor this morning's beverage or meal? Or if you're watching the recording, it might not be morning, but your previous meal or beverage. And so are you breathing? Can you feel congestion or clear? Can you smell anything? And then what inside yourself? Do you have aches or pains somewhere? What's happening in your space, in your neck? What's happening in your heart space, in your chest? What's happening in your whole space, your dantian? What's happening in your hips, knees? As you press down, extending, can you feel the floor beneath your feet, whether you have socks on or shoes? Can you feel that surface? And then can you feel the chair you're sitting on, your furniture, the upholstery, or the wood or the metal? Can you tell? Can you notice? Breathe here in this. Using the digits on your hands, your fingers, take 5 breaths, lifting your heart, softening your belly, and just noticing your senses. Breathing, paying attention, choosing you, treating yourself, showing up, being brave, being vulnerable, being willing, being curious, being ready. Bring your hands together at heart center. Yourself. Thank yourself for being here. I leave you with this loving kindness message. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be at peace. Be happy. May we be goodness and service to others. May we know the beauty of our own truths. May we have the courage to make the world a better place. One thought, one word, one deed at a time. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, Elder Source, for inviting me. Thank you, Sage, for all the good things you do for the community. And I am here for any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. Sonia, thank you so much. And Bill, you too, the information you both shared today. I feel more informed and already healthier, so myself. So thank you, both of you, for sharing. We do have just a few minutes for some questions. So we're going to open it up. If anyone, any of the viewers has a question, they could put it in the chat. And Cheryl and I also have some questions that we're going to pose to each of you while we have some time remaining. Bill, you mentioned technology as a means for self-care. Do you have any recommendations?
Yes, and I'd be interested in Sonia's thoughts on this as well, but what I use is an app for your phone called Insight Timer. And I love it because it's free, number one. You can download meditations that are 1 minute long or 30 minutes or 60 minutes long even. You can just set a timer, there's just lots of features. It also has a groups feature, so there's a bunch of LGBTQ specific groups that then you can speak to, chat with members of. There's also a sleep function. I never had any problem with sleep until COVID, and then then it all happened. And that has really helped me kind of create a self-care around sleep. So Insight Timer.
Great, thank you. And I saw Sonia nodding. I'm familiar with it as well. I didn't know, Sonia, if you wanted to add anything to that.
I'll advocate. I'm an advocate. That's the one I endorse. That's the one I've had that I started out with. So there are some other fabulous ones. Calm is popular. Happify. Gosh, I can't, there are, I mean, there's so many others. Zen Timer. So you can Google, you can put it on your app, you can read through the reviews, you can try them out. They almost all have, if you have to pay for it, they all have a free trial. And so really, when we say what is the best, it's what works for you. Comes down to is what works for you. And so check them out, try it, but absolutely I would endorse what Bill says, or caveat what Bill says with respect to find something, use technology to help you, to either you, to prompt you, to encourage you, to guide you. I love some of the guided meditations. What they call bedtime stories are wonderful till you tune out. You're like, that's boring. And the next thing you know, you're boring. See, when it's boring, you just got to start snoring. So I enjoy Insight Timer. Also, there are classes on it.
Great, thank you. Cheryl?
Yeah, Sonia, have another great question. This one really hit home for me, so I'd love to ask this question. As a caregiver, my daily schedule varies almost hour to hour. I don't ever know how life is going from day to day. So what do you suggest? How do I practice self-care when I'm already exhausted and overwhelmed?
Great question. And I understand it completely. I was a caregiver for my grandmother in a multi-generational household for a few years with my parents and my grandmother. One is work it in, weave it in. Choose that this is one of your threads of importance. One of your 5 must do for yourself, and weave it in when you're sitting in a chair, waiting for medication to take effect, waiting for the timing, waiting for the bath to finish, do some chair yoga, do some breath work, do some focused, do some body movement, work into your wiggles. You'd be amazed where the 5 and 10 minute workout can be so helpful and therapeutic for you. It's really about activating and as Bill used that word, intentionality. Right? The purpose and the outcome, the effect of anything is the intentionality we set for it. So choose to take care of yourself. And that's really hard to do. And I also know when you're exhausted, you really don't give a flip about, and it's almost too hard to think, right? You're just getting through, you're staying awake because it's whatever hour of the morning again. And I understand that. So knowing that, please make sure you have support, that you have somebody to reach out to, that you can text somebody at whatever time it is to just go, I'm here it again. Like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I wish I could get more than 2 hours of sleep at a time. And know that even just breathing helps you. So just all you have the ability, the capacity to do, don't have it be another burden that you're adding to yourself. Just sit and breathe and count. The 10 count breath, which we didn't practice today, but breathe in and count. Maybe you count to 4 or 10. It depends on how big are your lungs and how fast you count, right? So, and then you count a couple beats and then you breathe out to the same. Breathe the same at the bottom, and it's called box breath. But box isn't always square, it's a parallelogram. So you choose what the size of your box is. Just practice that. Just breathe and push your feet into the floor, ground and breathe while you're waiting sleepily, exhaustedly for the whatever it is that you have waiting to do. The second resource I would put, and I don't know if someone else can type it in for me, yoga, and then the number 4, Yoga for Caregivers is a private Facebook group. If you are a caregiver, please join a nonprofit organization. I'm a part of it, volunteers and on the board. Please join Yoga for Caregiver, because it is filled with daily multiple options get loaded up every day, which means they're there anytime you have the space to open up your device and you get to see a 5-minute something or a 15-minute practice or a meditation or a tapping or a yoga Sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're 5 minutes. They're lovely, and it's all for caregivers. So please check that out.
That was great information. We
That's
did
wonderful.
put a link in the chat for folks to find it. The yoga for caregivers. But one more question for you. No matter what I do, I always find it difficult to actually take that leap and ask for help. So how can I become more comfortable with actually asking for help?
I think that's a great question. And so many of us are way more comfortable with giving help than receiving it, right? Me included. I would say that opportunities are there with agencies around you. So, I mean, it could be SAGE, but it could be other agencies that are there for support. That's what they're there for. That by reaching out to them, you know, it takes away, sometimes the hardest people to ask for support are the people we love most and the people who love us most, because it's thought, oh, I don't want to bother them. Oh, I feel like there should be an equal exchange and they helped me yesterday and I don't want to ask again. And sometimes if you're able to get connected with agencies, and you can call that national hotline, we'll give you that number again. You can get connected to an agency whose sole purpose is to be there to help.
Thank you. And that leads us right to Cheryl and resources. Did you want to review some of those? And
Yeah, I think we have those on a slide. Is that correct?
I believe so. It should be a resource slide. There we go.
Sorry, guys, I lost it again.
There we go.
Yeah, so here's for information on Sonia and their work. You can go to their website at qwellnessyoga.com, and these will be available, I believe, a handout. And then for SAGE, you can actually reach Bill at sageusa.org, and his email address is on there. Next slide.
Okay. So, sorry, go ahead, Cheryl. Did you want to?
Oh, no, go ahead. I think our resource slides did not get put in here, but we can make sure that those get out to folks after the webinar. So.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, Sonia and Bill, again, both for your time today and the support you've given through this webinar to our friends and family and colleagues who are aging and LGBTQ plus in our community. We also want to thank the LGBTQ Fund at the Community Foundation again for funding this webinar series. As we said, the session is recorded and will be available on our website at myeldersource.org. We also have our YouTube channel. We also, I failed to mention earlier, among the resources, ElderSource is an Aging and Disability Resource Center and has a helpline. And so locally, in addition to myeldersource.org, where you can get information, there's also a chat feature on our website. You can also call our local number at 904-391-6610 and speak to one of our customer service specialists and find out what resources and services are available to you in our 7-county region, but also connect you to other area agencies on aging and aging and disability resource centers around the country. We have, as Bill mentioned, they have a telephone reassurance program. So does ElderSource. So if you're interested in volunteering, either with SAGE or with ElderSource, and make some friendly phone calls, that's a great opportunity both for you to reach out and help somebody else, but it's very fulfilling for you as well to volunteer and to do that reach out. There's other caregiver support services that SAGE can tell you about, but also that we have available through Elder Source, such as a virtual caregiver support group and other ways of connecting you to caregiver support services specifically. So if you have any questions, you have at the very least Sage and Elder Source you can reach out to, and we look forward to hearing from you. And in fact, the team put in the chat our toll-free number, which I never remember. So thank you for putting that in the chat. And with that, we want to wish you a wonderful day. And thank you for joining us. Cheryl, is there anything you'd like to add?
I just want to thank you again, Linda, for this opportunity to support this work through Elder Source. And I echo what you said, you know, locally, reach out to your area agency on aging. Almost every place in the country is served by one, such as Elder Source, and they really are an amazing connector to aging services at the local level. So thank you again, Linda, for this opportunity. And, you know, Sage is always here to be a supporter. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.